Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and of course stream for fun. Today we're going to be going over gaming news October 29th through November 4th, and I do want to mention too that we're going to be doing a Black Friday sales video. It's going to look just like this, and it'll be more for a listen or to take notes on. And you guys ended up voting, you did want one. And so it's like, all right, I'm going to be doing one. I will be doing one next week, or close to, depending on work schedule and stuff. But the important thing is I do want you guys to vote again, because I want to be able to do the video with what you guys would like. So I have consoles, there's accessories, and games and services. And so please vote on which one most matters to you, and that's on the community tab over at YouTube at Gaming Garbage 22. So please go ahead and vote for that, so that way I can kind of gear it toward more of what you guys are interested in. I probably will do a little bit of each one, and if you'd like them all, there's a thing for that too, but please go ahead and vote. So today for gaming news, we're going to be talking about Mortal Kombat 1 getting into more microtransactions. Yay. This was one of the last companies to do this. But yeah, we're going to go over what they did. We're also going to be going over some Microsoft changes in policy, which I think is going to affect the future of some of the studios, and it's also going to affect how we play, maybe, on console. We're also going to have an update on Skull and Bones, but bet you can't guess what that is. Something funny with Spiderman 2. We're going to talk about Destiny 2 layoffs and kind of the future of Bungie. And then we're also going to be looking at a kind of preview of Avatar: The Frontiers of Pandora. So that's coming out on December 7th. So we got about a month away, but there's actually a lot to dissect in this. We're also going to be talking about how Modern Warfare 3 has gone over with the campaign from IGN, and also what some others have said. And then I'm going to give my 2 cents too about what it was like for the multiplayer beta, which I played. And then also we're going to talk about a big update for FortNite and how that's changed the numbers a little bit for Epic Games. So again, you can always find me over at Twitch at Don't Tread on Thee. I don't have a normal streaming schedule, but that's because my life is so hectic, and that's why I love YouTube. I literally upload everything that I stream on Twitch over at YouTube at Gaming Garbage 22, and that's where I pretty much archive everything. If you do want to see it first, you know, you can be at Twitch sometimes too when I'm actually playing a game. I'll live stream. Some of you hop in for that, but too, if it's not really, you know, immediate, which is fine, you can pretty much find everything over at YouTube, and that's where I devote most of my time. So let's go ahead and get into this. So I do want to mention Microsoft change policies first, because this affects over 40 million of us around the world. There's probably a few more than that, because some of us also have the S as well, or even Xbox One. And as far as I know, this does affect Xbox One as well. So first, Microsoft is going to block third-party controllers and possibly other hardware. The reason for this move is that they want to remove some of the advantages that people have with certain third-party controllers that are kind of seen as a cheat to the company. And so Microsoft is going to be forcing everyone to use only licensed and approved products by Microsoft. So now this does not necessarily include headsets yet. So far this is just like third-party controllers or controllers with USB or possibly some other features, but you should be getting a notification at this point saying, hey, as of this date, which is November 12th, folks, it's literally a few, about a week away, you'll be getting an error code called 0x2, dyslexic folks, don't catch it, but yeah, 0x82. With a whole bunch of other numbers behind it. But if you see X82, it's probably notifying you about that particular, quote, error code. And again, the reason they're doing this is just to get rid of cheatware. Now, it is nice to get rid of the advantage and put players all on the same playing field. We know, too, with some of the leaks that happened at Microsoft, we're also going to be getting a, quote, universal remote, which will probably be working on Xbox One, Series X, and future generations of Xbox. But, you know, who wants to shell out $70? Yay. Will the old controllers still work? We're not sure yet. I will certainly be letting you know. So they do have something to sell us, but this also works on creating a monopoly too. And I've always appreciated Xbox and Microsoft because they usually allow third party on their console platform. Now, they're they're not completely constrained either with their operating system, but how they do things now is that it's more as a subscription service, and that actually can get quite a bit more expensive than just buying the physical disc like we used to. For some of you that remember that, used to get physical copies for Microsoft Suite and stuff like that, but this just further monopolizes Microsoft. And we already have further monopolization in other companies as well, such as Sony or such as Apple. I really hate seeing this because it ultimately makes the prices go up and also the services and products becoming more restrictive. And that's not usually better in my opinion. I always like people to have the freedom to choose, the ability to have liberty. And, it's a already kind of duopoly or triopoly anyway. There's really not a lot of companies for a lot of the types of products and services that we use. And this just further makes it more difficult. So that is a policy again showing up on November 12th. If you do have anything or you think you have anything, you might want to use it between now and then because you should be getting the error code message to alert you, hey, this is not going to be recognized and you'll need to be switching to something else. The other thing with Microsoft is that they're going to be being more active in managing Bethesda's ZeniMax after 3 years. And this change is coming because of the failure of Redfall and kind of the mid-tier of Starfield, which they were really banking on. And they did have more of an active hand in that, which I think was a good thing. I think we got a better product because of that. But also they now have Activision Blizzard for $69 billion. And so there's a lot of work to do with Diablo, Overwatch, and also Call of Duty, as I'll get to in a minute. Excuse me. But yeah, there's a lot of things that Microsoft is going to need to change, and I'm glad they're actually seeing that that's necessary, because they've had kind of more of a passive hands-off approach. They kind of own the intellectual properties, and they just let the studios do what they've done. But as we've been seeing with a lot of studios, even some of them shuttered already, is that studios really haven't been doing necessarily a really great job at pumping out a lot of good games. Now, we do have some really good games, but a lot of them are smaller, and a lot of the bigger IPs that we have out there, or even some of the game mills that we have where they just put out games just to shove something out there. They're not focused on quality at all, like Skull Island, The Rise of Kong. It's becoming really apparent that the same type of quality of environment and experience that we have at some of these studios and publishers is not the same. And so the games have been coming out worse. And two, we have quite a few studios that also really don't listen to feedback that well. And if, the financial pain is enough, if we withhold our cash and our pre-orders, etc., then when there's enough pain instilled, the companies do have to change. Otherwise, they're going to go out of business. And we do have that power and authority, folks, but we need to act in mass. And honestly, this is just another example that shows, like with Redfall and Starfield, Diablo, Overwatch, and Call of Duty, we need to be sharing our opinions, and we need to be really pushing for better quality assurance with these products, and also with the services that these companies provide. Not just the ones that I've mentioned, but all of them in the gaming space. Because we really want a better gaming space. We really want to keep our hobby kind of more geared toward us instead of geared toward the greedy companies. And that'll be an issue that I'm going to continue to talk about on this channel, because this is really why the gaming space is the way it is today. Is because first they create it, and then we tell them that it's fine by purchasing everything. And I'll be getting into that again as we get into Modern Warfare 3. Also, Skull and Bones is delayed again, officially. So this will be coming out sometime in Q1, my guess is February or March of 2024. This is putting it close to 11 years in development now. And this is starting to really get ridiculous. Now, I got to play a beta test. Of course, I couldn't show anything. I couldn't record anything. And I was asked again to do another beta test, but I had to actually log in and create a Ubisoft account this time or whatever. I didn't have just like a code that I could utilize through Xbox, so I was like, no, that's okay. It's not really going to be worth my time anyway. We already know it's probably going to suck. and we were already calling that it'll probably be delayed again. It is possible they'll just delay it indefinitely, and they do have an obligation to the Portuguese government to actually put this game out because they took money from the government to make this game, and I don't think private sectors should be doing that either. If it's a private company, they should use funding that they get from their products and services to actually fund future projects. That makes sense, and we don't want to involve government funds or taxpayer dollars when especially it's wasted on something that should be going to roads or like EMS or police or firefighters or fixing the plumbing and piping or sewer pipes in cities. That's what that should be going to. It shouldn't be going toward a video game. So that shouldn't even be part of the thing. But anyway, yeah, Skull and Bones is delayed again. Big surprise. Something funny in Spider-Man 2 was... so... Miles Morales is Puerto Rican, and in his room he has a flag, and unfortunately the dev or whatever put the wrong flag in there. Now granted, the Cuban flag does look generally the same. The colors are different, but the pattern is the same, and it would be easy to confuse the two, but literally Google is a free service we all have access to, along with Bing or DuckDuckGo or some other service or web browser like Firefox, and good grief. It's not that difficult, and it just shows a level of laziness in our industry. And not just our industry, but just us with our jobs in general. Isn't that true, folks? I mean, we can all think of something literally right now that we know we don't put our full heart and soul in, or even 80%. And we just kind of do the bare minimum to get by at our jobs. And we all do that. And honestly, we shouldn't be that lazy, folks. Now, maybe your job, of course, you don't see as important, but our jobs are what they are, and they help define who we are. And so if you like being thought of as lazy, then yeah, don't change anything. But I just thought this was pretty hilarious, because literally you can just look up the flag if you're not sure, or if someone else, other people too, probably saw this in production, and they still didn't change anything. So they did finally change this with an update, but yeah, it's just one of those lazy mistakes that shouldn't have even happened in the first place. So we should do a better job, folks. Also, we're going to talk about Destiny 2 layoffs at Bungie. So, Bungie is laying off about 8% of their employees. This is about 100 people, and they currently employ about 1,200 people. Of course, this is now down from the firings that they had. This wasn't just people that are grunt work, though that was probably the majority of them, but these were also some kind of mid-tier and senior leads in some departments, and then also head leads at some of these departments and upper management as well. And this was kind of shocking, because usually it's the grunts that are let go, but there were some of the big leads that were let go as well, and these were responsible for making the original Halo icon or helping create some of the artwork and concepts, along with some of the music. And so, yeah, this was kind of a big deal. Some of these people have been with Bungie for a long, long time, and now they've been let go. So I do wonder if there was some kind of a severance package they were offered, because sometimes companies would be like, hey, this is what's happening, this is the state of our business, and this is what we're going to be doing, and if you want to volunteer, quote unquote, we can give you this type of package. Otherwise, if we do decide to let you go later, it's going to be less than what this package is right now. So sometimes companies will do that to kind of mid-tier or upper management, and maybe that's what happened. We don't really know. There'd also be NDAs with that, non-disclosure agreements. And, but yeah, we'll probably never know until far into the future, where it doesn't matter anymore. But the reason for these layoffs, as Bungie cited, is that sales are down 45% through Destiny. Now, that is huge. Now, Bungie has basically all of their eggs in one basket. We do know they're making Marathon, and that's coming. But yeah, they've had a 45% lack of sales, or a 45% drawdown in their sales through Bungie. And the bulk of their business is through buying cosmetics and bundles and other stuff. So they have silver, they also have like Eververse, dust, and some other currencies in the game. It's actually quite muddy and murky to try to figure out exactly what you're buying and where you're buying and how much everything costs. There are deals on some things, but again, there's not really any advantages to any of this. It's all about just looking the part. And this is how games are basically selling their stuff. Now, this was great during COVID because of all the stimulus money. Well, now that stimulus money is running out, and as people aren't paying for this anymore, companies, not just Bungie, are starting to see massive decreases in sales. Because, again, their business model is not necessary, their products aren't necessary, and they don't make the bulk of their money off of just making a good video game anymore or off of future content. It's more about just selling you cosmetic stuff. Armor sets and other things to shove in your digital closet you're never going to fill. And we've talked about that before with other games too. And I really want them to actually create more game, create more product, more missions, more story, because that's actually what engages me. Because again, I don't really care what I look like. I don't care what I wear really in the real world or even in some video game. I would rather enjoy an experience. And I think that's starting to take hold a little bit as some of these companies are finding out. But two, life is just expensive. Inflation and prices haven't really gone down that much. They're still going up, generally speaking. And yeah, when food is double and insurance is up 50% and rent has gone up maybe 10% for some of you folks in your area, it's really expensive. And we're all feeling the pain right now. And so Bungie, along with other companies, are really starting to feel this. But it is unfortunate that a lot of these people, they're probably have families. They have rent. They have bills too, just like you and me. And it's horrible to get laid off. I hope none of you ever have to experience that. But during this recession that we, quote, don't have, it would be a good idea to actually work on your resume and just have that ready. I have mine ready. It's ready to go at a moment's notice. And then I also check the warning system, or warn, to actually see projected layoffs in my state, so that way I'm not blindsided. And I can start looking about a month early, which is kind of nice. So also with this, we know that the final shape is now delayed to June 2024, and also Marathon is now delayed to 2025, probably within the first half. That's kind of the guess. And yeah, layoffs right now, they're across the board. They're across community teams, art, engineering, legal, IT, recruiting, audio, creative teams. I mean, it is a bunch of people. Now, it is only 8%, and 8% is honestly pretty low for a layoff. Most layoffs are around 10, or even some bigger layoffs like they had at BioWare are maybe around 20 or 25%. So 8% really isn't that bad, but I don't think we're done seeing layoffs at Bungie, along with other layoffs in the industry. With these layoffs, all employees get 3 months of pay. They also get 3 months of Cobra health insurance. And so that really kind of got me thinking. It's like, okay, how much is the company actually saving? And so when we take a look at the average pay at Bungie, it's $86,000, plus about $18,000 a year in health insurance, assuming that these people have families. And so when you extrapolate all that out with 100 employees, the company is saving somewhere between $10.2 to $10.5 million per year by not having these employees, but they're saving more than that. There also are reports, which I couldn't verify this, I certainly tried, but they've also removed some job openings from the company. So taking a look at LinkedIn right now, there's only 17 positions open. Apparently at one point there was around 40 positions open for the company. And that's quite a big change. And so even removing some of those other jobs, that would be, hundreds of thousands, or maybe even a few million more dollars that now they're not going to have to pay in wages and health insurance and time off, etc., because now those job openings aren't even there. And that's something, too, that's happening in the economy, is that we're seeing a decrease in job openings pretty much every single month. And so, yeah, employees are the most expensive facet of a company. And, it sucks. Again, these are people's lives. And companies, they do try to hang on to employees as long as they can, for the most part. But when push comes to shove, the company, its goal is to stay alive. And a lot of these workers were deemed redundant. And so, bye-bye. Sayonara, man. It sucks. It really does. It would be brutal to lose my job. But, when you're looking for a job, or more of a full-time career, you should think about the health of the industry that you're going for, and you should look at the companies that aren't just paying good now, but are also more sustainable. Because again, if push comes to shove, you will be cut, and you decide who you work for. No one's forcing your hand to work for a particular company or how long you're going to stay there. And so I thought of that too. My interview with my current company 10 years ago was 2 hours long because I had some of my own questions about the company. And I remember one of the people at the table at the company was like, we don't usually have people ask questions about us. We're asking the questions. And I said, well, you've never met someone like me before. And I said, you get to choose who you hire. And I said, I get to choose who I work for. And it's okay to kind of have that understanding with the company or even during your job interview. Maybe you're not going to get the job, but I guarantee you the company that's going to hire you, when you kind of put that forth, is that they're going to be thinking more long-term and keeping you as an employee. Now, if you're a good worker like I am, then yeah, you're probably going to stay there. And you're going to have a better, easier time than maybe some other employees, depending on what the job is. But yeah, if you're good to the company is going to keep you and let other people go first. And I've mentioned that too in some of my economic videos. I think I'm going to do one toward the end of the year because we have some data coming out that's pretty important. So yeah, this really sucks. The current 17 job openings, I'm getting a little sidetracked there, are a lot of mid to senior positions. These pay anywhere from $125,000 to $180,000. And a lot of these too are for Marathon. They're not really for Bungie. Some of the designs are, some of the focus for for Destiny is still there. I'm a little tired, folks. But yeah, we don't edit anything out on this channel. So yeah, some of the job openings are for Destiny 2, but a lot of them are for Marathon. And so that really, I think, shows that Destiny is kind of done with. They still do technically have a 2-year roadmap. And, they still have the final shape, which will be kind of like the really last big DLC or whatever, kind of the end of the story. And then they'll kind of have a 2-year roadmap to just kind of shove some more things in there. But I don't think it's going to be the same. And a lot of people, too, with this news have already been canceling their final shape pre-orders. So I don't think this is really good for Bungie. And this is another reason why, too, I don't think that the layoffs are finished at this point. I don't think Marathon's going to do very good either, because you pissed in your Cheerios or your consumer base, which sucks. But I think the job openings that they currently have, again, 17, not 14, making that correction, is that it's for Marathon. It's not for Destiny. So, we'll see what happens in the future. I'll be keeping an eye on this. But now let's go ahead and move to Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. So there's been a few people that have gotten kind of like a preview code, and they are able to talk about it. But there's certain things too that they also can't show. So they can't show menus, they can't show certain aspects of the game or the gameplay. So they've been able to show what they can, and they have been able to show their own gameplay capture. And so that's what we see. So it's not a complete review. Again, this also is not completely finalized. This was rendered through a kind of like a streaming service that Ubisoft has, some type of portal network. And so we don't also get the full entire resolution either. So I just want to make it clear that when you look at some of these previews, you're not seeing the true fidelity of the game. The game is visually going to look better than what you're currently seeing. So I watched over at YouTube, Young Yeah, Mr. Matty Plays, and Born to Game. And yeah, the summation of these was probably about an hour and 10, an hour and 20 minutes, give or take. And each one of these got about 2 hours of gameplay. That was kind of the field test for this preview. And so here are the thoughts. And there was actually a lot more to dissect. I took up an entire freaking page of this. So go ahead and hang in there with me. But so far, the game is very, very beautiful and the landscape is immersive. It can be easy to get lost for some, as there's a lot of vegetation. It's also not just flat. There's also multiple kind of layers or tiers to the world. And so it can be hard to find things sometimes. And some people were certainly having that issue. They also weren't able to have a map. As far as I know, they weren't able to show it technically So I'm not even really sure if they had one. They did have a compass too, but it didn't really seem to be that helpful. And then there were waypoints in the game, but they didn't stay highlighted. And the focus, it was very much on exploration of the world of this open world RPG. It is said that certain parts couldn't be shown, again, like the maps and the menus and etc. But what we were able to see was that with some of the great things is that you get your Dino Bird. I forget what they're called in Avatar, please forgive me. But yeah, you get your Dino Bird and you're able to fly around the open world and you're able to visit some of the floating islands. It honestly makes kind of recon a bit easier. You're also able to engage in aerial combat. And it's really, really cool, but this also is the only third or 3D aspect of the game that we have. Everything else is in first person. Some of the issues with your Dino Bird exploration was that you get stuck in tighter areas, you get hung up on some of the islands or some other vegetation, and so there was kind of some refinement issues there. And then also one of the complaints by one of them was that kind of flying, it was really cool and it was really kind of immersive and you get to see really cool viewpoint of the whole world of Pandora, but in some aspects after a while it felt kind of slow. It felt like you should kind of have this rush or this kind of push to really kind of flow through stuff, right? And it didn't necessarily feel like that. It felt a little slow. There was nothing mentioned ever about fast traveling. So I do think you actually have to travel from A to B to C to D to A again, and you actually have to take the time to get there. What's nice with like Starfield or a lot of other games like Elden Ring or even Lords of the Fallen is that you're able to kind of travel around and fast travel, which is nice to go from A to B. So I do hope they actually have that implemented at some point, because Avatar actually looks like a pretty big game. It's a pretty big open world. I can't imagine an open world not having a fast travel system. Again, I really hope they do, but this was not mentioned whatsoever. Let's see. There's also crafting in the game. So you're able to find materials. There are some kind of... quiet isn't the word I'm looking for, but some kind of subtle, that's a good word, some kind of subtle ways to see the materials that you're looking for out in the open world, and you can use this to make food, create ammo, and also increase your utility, like in Far Cry, like increasing an ammo pouch or increasing your healing pouch or whatever. And so crafting, there is kind of that level of crafting. It's not super complicated or complex. It's actually pretty easy. You can also craft stuff right on the fly, also like in Far Cry, which is nice. And you can also kind of prepare for like an assault on a base or whatever. And you kind of do have to do that, kind of like in Far Cry as well. You want to make sure you got all your ammo, all your explosives, all your healing stuff maxed out in your pouch. And you're as best and ready as you can be, which is pretty cool. So yeah, but you can kind of think of like the Far Cry element to this. And it also plays a lot like Far Cry 2. There's a lot of stuff with the combat, there's a lot of stuff with the movement in the world, there's a lot of things with probably some of the menus as well. Is that, yeah, this is kind of going to feel like, probably like a Far Cry game. And right now, if you're interested, there's several of the Far Crys on Game Pass currently, including Far Cry 5, which isn't really that old of a game. It's a few years, but it'll give you an idea of kind of what that gameplay will look like, including the combat, which I'll get to in a minute. There's also skill trees, so there's, of course, one for you. There's also one for human weapons in the game, which are focused on power and kind of being loud and stuff. And then there's also another skill tree for Navi weapons, which is more focused on stealth with like your bow and arrow. And then you also have a skill tree for your Dino Bird, which is kind of nice. The combat is versatile, but seems easiest with your human weapons, as Navi weapons are built for precision strikes, and then the controls are not really built for precision. So again, I said that it's kind of, the combat is kind of built like Far Cry, and you know, we all know if we've played Far Cry that basically if you have one shot, you really wait for that shot and make sure that your target really isn't going to move, because it's not precise like Battlefield or like Call of Duty or like even quote FortNite to an extent, is that there's really kind of a choppiness to the movement or kind of the engagement, and that's because you don't have any type of aim assist. So as far as I can recall, and from what it looked like in the combat, there's no aim assist at all. You actually got to do all of the aiming yourself. in most first-person shooter games are brutal. They play totally different. Not in a bad way, but they do play totally different without aim assist, and I don't think this has aim assist either. This wasn't mentioned at all. One thing that I noticed was that the aerial combat looked fairly easy. Your weapons do a lot of damage to a lot of the aerial enemy types up in the air. So that looked kind of easy. And then, too, in some of the bases, it didn't really look like there were really enough enemies to be challenging. And a lot of the enemies themselves didn't look that challenging either. So I do kind of worry about the combat aspect. In a lot of Far Cry games, the enemies aren't challenging. Once you know kind of your tools and weapons, it's actually fairly easy to just kind of, just kind of whip through most of the game and have a good time. Same with kind of like Ghost Recon, Wildlands, or Breakpoint, or again with some of the Far Cries, or even like the Division. Again, it's all made by the same company, Ubisoft. And generally speaking, the enemies are easy. It's more about kind of how you plan your attack, and how good you are with certain weapon types or whatever, and then too how tanky the enemies are, so how much health they have. One thing that's very important, which I think one of the reviewers missed, was how important Navi Vision is. It is absolutely a must in the game. So Navi Vision allows you to see crafting materials, certain kind of like points or areas in the game. You're able to see enemies. You're able to see weak points on certain enemies. So Navi Vision is very, very important in the game. And I don't think one of them discovered it during their 2-hour gameplay. So they were very, very lost and just kind of like, what is going on? Did not have a fun experience at all. So be sure to remember that, is that, yeah, your Navi Vision is pretty important. But this is kind of a cool thing, because we all know that Ubisoft HUDs are really busy. But with Navi Vision, you get to choose when your HUD is on. You get a few pieces of information on your HUD, generally speaking, all the time. But with Navi Vision, we kind of get that busyness that we're used to seeing, but only for a short period of time, and then it fades away. And so it's kind of cool. You can turn your HUD on and off when you want, and this is really a genius idea. I can't believe quite a few of us have never really thought about this, because we've seen it in other games before. Yeah, with Navi Vision, it kind of gets rid of the clutter, and you're able to enjoy the environment. You're able to get more immersed in it. You don't have all these weird dots and checkpoints and everything all over the place. You kind of have a more streamlined HUD system, and that is really, really nice. So that's a genius move on their part. One of the issues is that one of the missions during the gameplay test for one of these folks, it didn't work. So they said it said in the quest that they had to find this particular area with the bonfire, and these are relatively close, but you still kind of have to explore to find your location. Again, with Navi Vision, it would probably make it a little more easier. Yeah, they just had a horrible time trying to play. And, but yeah, they got there and nothing happened. And so they were able to reach out to a dev. Devs were kind of on standby so that you could ask questions and whatever, and they could get feedback as well. And the dev was like, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that one first. That's out of order. You got to do some other stuff in the game first." So even the playtest wasn't as good. There also weren't any tutorials either. The other two people that I watched, they seemed to get into it pretty intuitively. But yeah, this third person knew Ubisoft games and had probably played some, but yeah, they kind of needed some of that extra help, and they just really got lost. They had a brutal time. But yeah, one of the missions didn't even work. The other two didn't seem to have this problem. They didn't mention anything. But this one said, yeah, they were just told directly by the devs, "Oh, you went out of order," which, again, the playtest doesn't tell them that. They weren't privy to that. They kind of burned time. They said they played about 20 minutes trying to find this location and trying to get it to work. And then they chatted with one of the devs. But yeah, that's kind of a horrible way to do a playtest. Excuse me, or a preview. Is, yeah, if you're going to have it in the game, you need to be able to have it work. So hopefully they fix that as well. Is that there will be some things that will be available to us and we won't have things that aren't available to us if we can't even access it yet. Now, a locked door or something, that's one thing, but getting a quest that actually says you can engage with it and then you can't, that doesn't bode very well with the gamers. There's also issue 2 with let's see. Oh yeah, there wasn't really enough play time. And this was mentioned by a couple of the reviewers, is that they only had a couple of hours. They were having a fun time. They were enjoying it. They were enjoying the combat and kind of the story and the immersiveness and visuals of the world, to be the ability to fly around and stuff. They were having a good time with the game, but the general consensus too is that is this just going to be another Ubisoft game where the game kind of feels grindy after a while? The quests and stuff get kind of repetitive, and we've seen this in Assassin's Creed games. We've seen this too in The Division. We've seen this in Far Cry. Is that, yeah, there's just kind of this repetitive motion after a while. And they're kind of worried about it still being kind of the same way. Even though visually everything is stunning and flying around is fun, including with aerial combat and stuff, they still feel like you're going to enjoy that for the initial piece, and then you'll kind of be done, or kind of the wonder effect will be over, right, after a certain period of time. And then the game is just kind of get grindy. There are abandoned buildings in the world, and these are you can be able to loot. We don't know how many people found, but all 3 were able to find actually abandoned buildings. They did mention this, that you could loot bases, or that there was ammo to pick up for some of your weapons, or other things, or crafting materials were actually pretty easy to see with Navi Vision. And so there are plenty of things to loot in the world. But I do wonder too if the building structure, the abandoned ones and the bases and all that kind of stuff, if things are kind of cookie cutter. So even like we saw on Starfield, it's just like, man, I'm kind of wanting more versatility there. Now, as far as we know, nothing is procedurally generated. Everything's handcrafted. But still, for the sake of time, some of the buildings might be cookie cutter, and I really hope they're not. I hope there's kind of some more uniqueness built in, and that'll also make the game more enjoyable and more immersive. So let's see. One thing that I got to see on every single playthrough was the pop-in, pop-out of certain assets in the game. So we got to see this with floating islands. We got to see this with clouds. We got to see this with certain trees, too, or other foliage. And this is kind of an issue. I mean, again, we only have about a month away until this is finished, and the pop-in really doesn't look that good. A lot of games don't have issues with pop-in. I mean, they can use fog, they can use things with draw distance, they can create some other kind of illusions in the game to make things look more real, or kind of keep that immersion. And for one of them, this immersion was really broken a lot by the pop-in, pop-out, especially when flying. They got to see it pretty bad. Now, again, this was not completely rendered yet. This is a playtest through a portal that Ubisoft has. So we don't get to see visually the final product, thank goodness. But yeah, hopefully they do work on fixing this, because there was actually a lot of it. If you're paying attention through Young, yeah, Mr. Matty Plays and Born to Game, with what they showed of the gameplay, there's a bunch. And it's pretty easy to see, too, that, like, some of the clouds aren't smoothed out, and the islands just kind of look like they're shoved in there, like in Sonic the Hedgehog, the last game we got earlier this year, is that things just kind of look pasted in. And even some of the trees are just like, boop, boop, there it is. And, yeah, that really looks pretty bad. Let's see. So the final verdict from taking a look at all these 3 is that the game does actually look very fun. There's going to be some bugs, and for the first 10 hours, it'll probably be a wonderful time. And then after that, the game is going to kind of feel like a normal Ubisoft story game, where the missions are somewhat varied and different, but again, they'll kind of still feel repetitive. There probably will be some issues with challenge in the game, especially with combat, and also having to kind of look and roam around. Again, this HUD is not like really big on lining out everything for you. Ubisoft is kind of taking a step back with this one. They really want you to kind of explore the world and become immersed in it. And so that means also more running time of just trying to find something. Again, some of the descriptions of these quests are just like, hey, look for this type of floating island with purple trees on it. It's like, well, better start looking. Again, all of the quests are in a certain area, or you'll be in tuned with that. But yeah, you'll still have to take some time to kind of look around. So that can take an extra 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on how dense the foliage is. And two, there was also an issue with a pinpoint of a certain location. It's like, but there's multiple tiers to Pandora too. It's not all just on one plane. There's like, okay, is it under the tree? Is it in a cave? Is it kind of on the ground? Is it up in the tree? Is it up on one of the floating islands? Like, where the frick is this thing? And so I think that also, too, is going to get frustrating for some people. Navi Vision is actually a really cool idea with the HUD to be able to get information when you need it and kind of keep the HUD clean most of the time. And then also the 2 different weapon sets with your dino board. It'll make the game fun. It'll make it interesting and innovative. You'll be able to get a good amount of feedback from the game. And I think the game will kind of start as an 8 out of 10 for most people within the first hour or several hours. Maybe even within the first 10 hours. Again, we don't exactly know how big this game is. But I think as people play, this will kind of sink down to kind of a mid-game. Somewhere between a 6 and a 7. The people that really love Avatar will probably give this a high score. The bias is there, and hey, that's okay. We all have our own biases, and that's just a part of our world. But I think generally speaking, this game is going to get a 6 out of 10, or a 7 out of 10. And the reason is because the amount of bugs, the immersiveness, the pop-in, pop-out of visual assets in the game. Some things in the game are really fun and innovative, like being able to fly around. Some people are really going to enjoy that, and that's also going to make the game more fun to travel around in. But again, it's like, can you fast travel? Because this is an open world game. I could sure hope you could. But I did see a lot of them too just flying around, getting from location to location. So we'll have to see kind of how the final product is. Also, I want to talk about the different editions. So the base game, again, is going to be $70. There are a couple of DLCs. There's going to be, quote, 2 story packs. So again, they'll kind of be DLC story packs. You can get one of the kind of like higher editions of the game to get those story packs, but most of the DLCs are just skins. They don't do anything, they don't add anything, they're just visually for your dino bird and for yourself and for your weapons. They don't really do much. And this is the bulk of most of these game editions outside of the base version of the game, is that it's just a bunch of those. And so again, it's like, I mean, at least there are 2 story packs. Again, we don't know what those are like, or even really when they're going to be coming out, as far as I could find. So we'll have to see what that looks like. There is a collector's edition, $230, but this also doesn't seem available for everybody. But what I did find is that you have to get it at GameStop. This isn't going to be anywhere else. It's GameStop only. So what's in the collector's edition is there's going to be a statue of a Navi with a bow. They're jumping, working the bow back, and getting ready to fire. They're also on top of one of the kind of like Titanfall robots with a couple of arrows in one of the sections of the glass of the cockpit. And that's your statue. It's about 35 centimeters tall, or about a foot tall, depending where you are in the world. There's also a full art book, which is actually quite large. And there's various pictures and holographs and all that kind of stuff, or lithographs and things like that that come with the collection. There's actually a lot that you get, but again, the biggest thing is the statue and the art book. Also, with the collector's edition, you do get the story packs along with all of the DLC and all the skins and everything. I do hope you also get a physical copy of the game, but I didn't see a case with the collector's edition. So sometimes the collector's edition is just, again, a digital code for your game, which I think really sucks. They should at least give you a physical copy. So be sure for that. Make sure to talk to GameStop to see what they can tell you as they get product in. as you get closer to December 7th and actually see if there's a physical copy. Oh yeah, something too is that the music is really well done in the game. So the music is really fitting. The music comes in on some really good scenes and missions, and it's very engaging emotionally. So yeah, visually with the music, the game is spot on. I think some of the combat is going to be an issue. Trying to find things a little bit is going to be an issue. If there is no... I'm trying to think. I'm tired, folks. I apologize. If there's no fast travel, I think that's going to be a problem as well. Hopefully there is. Yeah, overall, I think the game will kind of be in the mid-game. Also, I think Avatar Frontiers, it's going to show us what Star Wars Outlaws is going to look like coming out next year. I think in February, in March, somewhere in there. And I really think how this one goes is... yeah, this will be an interesting one to see. We know that Outlaws is going to be third person, and Avatar is all first person. So there is going to be some dynamic change there in how the game is going to feel, how you're going to be able to view and engage with the game. But yeah, if you think of third person, Starfield is probably going to look something like that. Or like Jedi Survivor or Jedi Fallen Order. So I'm really hoping Star Wars Outlaws is going to be a good game. This should be coming out pretty soon, but we also haven't really heard anything for a while. Maybe I should look into Outlaws, see if there's anything on the next week of gaming news. Next, we need to get to Modern Warfare 3. So, IGN has reviewed the campaign, and they gave it a 4 out of 10, which is absolutely brutal, and I really think it's well-deserved. This is the shortest Call of Duty campaign ever, at about 4 hours. If you're really good, maybe you can shrink it down to about 3.5. If you're speed running, you could probably cut it down to 2 hours, maybe 2.5, and that's really depressing. Also, IGN said that the campaign was boring. There's really nothing unique, nothing memorable. And this too was just a really big disappointment. And we were talking about this too because Sledgehammer Games made Vanguard, and the campaign was okay. Like, I enjoyed the campaign for what it was, but the campaign wasn't great. I also really freaking hated the zombies. And then the multiplayer was frustrating with the blueprints. And again, we're getting all of this all over again with Modern Warfare 3 because it's made by the same company. This too, mind you, is also a DLC turned into a full-fledged game. So that's why the campaign is so short. Big surprise. I hope folks are enjoying their $70 DLC when the game comes out. Again, if you really have to have it, that's okay. $70 for 4 hours with free Warzone and free multiplayer to a point, and your pre-order skins. If that's worth $70, it's your money. But this is really not worth $70, folks. I don't even think this is worth $50. I'm not going to be paying for this. I'm going to wait for a pretty huge sale, and then eventually I'll play the campaign myself, just like I did with Modern Warfare 1 in 2019 and Modern Warfare 2 that came out last year. But this is really frustrating because the multiplayer also isn't anything special. We get the same game modes. We get to port over 60 guns of progress from Modern Warfare 2 over into Modern Warfare 3. We get an additional 42 guns, I think it was, to also grind out for progress. We get to port over some of our skins. We get remastered Modern Warfare 2, which is like 2009 maps. And yeah, a lot of things that they have in the game. It just does not make it feel like a full game. It's too small. So yeah, in Modern Warfare 3, you get to port over your skins, you get the same game modes, you're also going to get Al Mazrah still for multiplayer. Yeah, we do get at least the 40 new guns, and they are changing the attachment system, so you don't have to grind certain guns at a certain level to unlock other attachments for other guns. Once you get the attachment, you can put it on any gun you wish, within reason, which is nice. Right? You can't put a sniper rifle barrel on a pistol, right? It's not going to work. So within reason. But that's nice that they're at least doing away with that. Let's see. Most of the changes in the game could have been an update. Like the red dots appearing on the minimap when somebody shoots with an unsuppressed weapon. Again, that was back in Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3. Why they removed that in the first place, I have no idea. Maybe it made the kill streaks more important. But now UAV is kind of worthless for the most part. It's not as important. But again, that could have been an update. And they didn't have to remove it in the first place. The biggest push on the game is there's more skin bundles than ever before to purchase. That's their biggest push. It's not the campaign. It's very short. Because it was a DLC, folks. It's not the multiplayer. Because, again, most of the maps are the remastered ones from Modern Warfare 2. Some of them were good, I agree. But they could have just shoved all of this into a bundle. Like they did with Black Ops 3 Zombie Chronicles. Just shove the zombie maps together, right? Just shove the multiplayer maps together and just make a bundle for that. Call it $50. You can call it a day. People will buy it. But they didn't do that. They made an entirely new game where you have to pay $70. There's also still hackers in multiplayer, which is frustrating. We got that on day one with PlayStation. There were, I'm sure, definitely some, one particular guy I can think of during my playthrough beta on Xbox. It's like, what the frick? That guy should be freaking dead, and people complained about it too on PC. We still have Warzone, which is unchanged. We have a new Zombies, which I do want to try this. This is an open world Zombies. But again, it kind of feels boring. So if you're curious what this is going to feel like, I suggest you play Cold War, because that had an open world zombie map. And actually, I did enjoy that. I think it would be a lot more enjoyable because you could progress further with teammates, just like in other zombie modes and games. But again, they're using Al Mazrah, so they're not even using a new map. At least with Cold War, we had an entirely new map, which was great. But we don't get that. We just get Al Mazrah. So they're using an old thing with the same mode and shoving zombies in it. And people, so far, they're not really enjoying that from what they've been able to see. There are night maps in the rotation, which that's actually a good idea. The lighting can change everything for gameplay. That's why all the spooky games are at night. Surprise! So that is cool. I hope they actually keep that in there. But again, Sledgehammer has messed up again. And this is the second failure in a row. Big failure, in my opinion. And again, this is not worth $70. And folks, you can save a ton of money if all of your friends agree to just stay on Modern Warfare 2. If you're in a clan, if you're in a group of friends, if you got your buddies from school or college or whatever, if you all agree just to play Modern Warfare 2, you can still play the maps. You still have the game modes. You're still going to have most of the weapons that are going to be in Modern Warfare 3 anyway. You're still going to have your skins that you don't have to port over to Modern Warfare 3. And ultimately, you can just wait for a sale, whatever price point that is. You don't have to pay for this. Because as we continue to pay for things that really aren't worth the money, you're showing the company that, hey, it's okay. It's okay to screw us over like this. And this is a screw over, folks, because there's other games out there. Again, there's Modern Warfare 2. There's the older CODs, which matchmaking was brought back, and they're probably going to be coming on Game Pass in the future. We also have Battlefield. There's Golfing with Friends, which I even think is less of a scam than Modern Warfare 3 is. I mean, Modern Warfare 3 is trying to have you pay $70 all the way up to $100 plus Battle Pass for a game that was originally DLC. And even on PlayStation, you know, the Platinum Trophy, when you get all of the other achievements or whatever, the Platinum Trophy doesn't even exist for Modern Warfare 3 because it's registered with PlayStation officially as a DLC. Folks, don't buy this. Don't buy this. It's ridiculous. At least Mirage wasn't a full $70 game. It was $50. And it should be because it was a smaller game, and they knew that. They knew that. But this is the real kicker, folks. Get ready to clear 213 gigs off of your hard drive because that's how big this game is going to be. The bare minimum is 79 gigs for multiplayer. If you're adding on everything without the high resolution packs, it's 150 gigs. or 145, somewhere in there. I can't remember the exact number. I didn't write it down. But that means that there's no 4K, which is pretty standard now. You can get a 4K TV for under $300. So pretty much everybody has one. But yeah, if you include everything, it's 213 gigs. 213 gigs. This is almost as big. This is around the size of Cold War. Cold War is huge. It's like, again, it's 200. And that's way too freaking big. There's no reason it should be that big. So when asked, the company said, Sledgehammer, was like, well, we have open world zombies. We have the campaign. We have the multiplayer maps along with the remastered multiplayer maps. We're going to have all of the stuff you can port over, which is 60 guns and your skins and whatever. But really, folks, the campaign is super small. The zombies is basically an open world zombies. We do have games with resolution already, but even at 4K at max res, games are 100 gigs. Games are 140 gigs. And it's like, where is all the extra stuff coming from? So I was really thinking about this, and I think where it's coming from is that it's coming from all of the bundles of skins. I'm not kidding. All the weapon skins, all the charms, all the freaking stickers, all the camo for your guns and whatever, all of the outfits you get to wear because you're cool. I think that's where it's all coming from. Because you're going to be able to download all of that stuff to your game, and then when you pay for it, you'll have access. Because you don't buy a map pack and then it downloads to you. It's already downloaded. So when you pay for it, you just get access. And so that's where all of this is coming from. Isn't that disgusting? Isn't that ridiculous? Because, yeah, there's like 75 gigs here of extra stuff, and it's like, where the heck is that coming from? But with having the biggest push for skin bundles ever in COD history, 213 gigs makes sense. It's disgusting, folks. It's disgusting. Lastly, Epic Games has gone back to the original gaming map for FortNite. And a lot of people came back. They basically doubled their player count from about 2.5 million to 5 million. But that's still far away from the peak that they had at about 12 million back in 2020. We all know why, because we were staying home from work. And a lot of the old players are having a blast. They are having an advantage because they remember the map. Twisted Towers, Paradise Falls, or Lost, or Palms, or whatever the frick it is. The resort thing over there. And I remember, boy, yeah, it's crazy to think that's a long time ago. Wow. I feel old. How many seasons are there now? Are there like 10 seasons? So the game's like, good grief, 8 years old. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, the old players are having an advantage because since they know the maps, also the old guns are there, the old items are there. And so the newer players are like, they're having to relearn everything. And the old players are like, hey, I've already done this before. I already know where all the sniping stuff is. I already know how to use the guns, the type of range I need to be with another enemy in order to kill them, etc., all that stuff. And so the newer kids are getting screwed. So yeah, it's not all about being quick and young, folks. It's actually about tactics and how you play the game. And so get good, kids. I hope you guys are enjoying getting power broomed across the map, because I would love to see some of the raging on that. That'd be hilarious. But more importantly, I think this is another example of another publisher leaning on the past to keep the revenue flowing into their company. We've seen the largest amount of remasters. We've seen the largest amount of reboots. We've seen the largest amount of DLCs becoming full-fledged games. We've seen the largest amount of delays. We've seen the largest amount of just epic destruction of expectations with games that weren't even ready, that shouldn't have even been put out, or should have been delayed a whole nother year. Even with Starfield, there were still some bugs. I mean, it's a huge game, yeah, and they're going to run into some issues with procedural generation, since this is kind of like the first or second time they're using it like this. And the game does run pretty good, but again, I think they used that 10 months to kind of polish the game instead of actually creating more engaging aspects of the game. And again, my overall review for Starfield is, yeah, it's still a solid 7. For me it is. I think people's expectations weren't met, though, including my own. That's why it's a lower score. But as a Bethesda game, it's pretty good. As a Ubisoft game for Mirage, it's great going back to the old Assassin's Creed. People really enjoyed that. But I think the functionality as a game, Mirage isn't as good. But it is only $50, which is nice. Again, Modern Warfare 3, it's an Activision game. That's what you would expect. And so the expectations are not being met with a lot of these companies, and they're having to go back to something that people love, the nostalgia, right? Because a lot of these gamers are now in their 20s or in their 30s, and they've played a lot of these games. But what I want is Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, the last God of War game that we had. These are the games that I want to play. I don't want to play rehashed stuff and have them resell it to me for another $60 or $70. That's not what I'm going to enjoy. So be careful out there, folks. At least with Fortnite, it's free to play. You can hop on and get screwed, and maybe I can do that for your guys' enjoyment if I have time. Knock on wood. But yeah, this is just another example where it's just like companies are having a bit of a struggle, and they're trying to figure out after COVID and after all the stimulus money, how do they get money back in through the door? So, yeah, brutal. Also, too, people seem to be enjoying Alan Wake 2. It seems to be actually going pretty good. So if you're into survival horror, that's probably one you want to look into. Also, I want to say Five Nights at Freddy's. Not everybody liked that, but my expectations for my wife and I were actually pretty low. And we had a blast seeing that movie. I mean, they only had a $20 million budget. You can tell a lot of the stuff went into their animatronics because that is not CGI'd, folks. That's real. And it's really cool to see the animatronics. I really appreciate that. But yeah, the movie has grossed like $150 million now. It's crazy. They've made over 700% gross on their movie, which is impressive. Yeah, I suggest go see it at a second play theater. My wife and I were actually going to go see it again. We enjoyed it so much. And what I appreciated about the movie is that it held really true to the lore. And you don't have to necessarily play the games to learn about the story behind the game. You can actually just kind of enjoy the movie, but there's a ton of fan service there. And yeah, I mean, if you've played Five Nights at Freddy's, any of them, I think you should go see the movie. It'd be some fun, cheap entertainment. So that's all I got for you today, folks. Gal, I know that's a long one. How long did I go here? Wow. Oh, a little over an hour. I know it's a long one, folks. Of course, you can always find me over at Twitch at Don't Tread on Me, and you can also find me over at Gaming Garbage 22 on YouTube. But ultimately, folks, you guys are going to be the ones that are going to promote the channel. So don't just like and sub, but also share with others. That's going to help the algos or whatever. And really, I want to share this channel because, as per the title, Gaming Garbage, I think the industry is turning into junk. And I want to share that. And I want to save you guys money if I can, because games like Modern Warfare 3, Diablo, Overwatch 2, Redfall, these are games that were presented in such a way that they're just scamming you. It just sucks. And hey, it is your money ultimately. If you know everything and you want to buy it anyway, that's fine. But I don't want anybody getting scammed, because everything's going digital now, and it's actually really hard to, seems to be getting a refund for digital games. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope, don't forget the holidays are coming up. Please spend time with your family, spend time with friends. Have a Friendsgiving if you need to, because not everybody has a perfect family life, but honestly, nobody does. And regardless of where things at with your family, you'll appreciate it when you get older, of actually working on those relationships, mending those relationships, and I encourage you to do that. So, until next time, we'll see you guys on the next one.